So you were one of mine.
Yeah, my favourite.
Oh.
And I'm not just saying that.
You're my favourite too. You got me then, you got me crying.
Crying?
You did?
Did you?
Yeah, you got me.
I was getting all... I
was getting all emotional then.
That interview was a hit, wasn't it?
Did you see it?
Yeah, I did see it. Yeah,
Did you like it?
Well, it was quite an emotional experience for me, that interview. You can see it,
Yeah.
can't you? You can see the impact.
It was for me as well. Like, it was a huge moment.
That's why people responded to it, I think.
Yeah. I think it, yeah.
Because I didn't know you were on the spectrum, did I? You told
Yeah.
me in the middle of bloody interview.
I was quite nervous today, actually. I wasn't sure if you'd remember who I was. I wasn't.
Oh, don't be silly.
No, I wasn't. Well,
Yeah, no.
You must meet a lot of interviewers and things.
Yeah, but not like you. Not like that.
No.
You know, that was, you know, it's a job and you have to guard yourself against journalists.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel like that with you.
So how's your personal understanding of autism changed since you started the show?
I mean, I've become fascinated by autism in the way that you do, because you realise it's a profoundly human condition, and that to a certain extent we can all locate ourselves on the spectrum. I'm sure you have Asperger's, right?
Yeah.
You must look at people, maybe even me, and go,
Like my mum, for example, right? She's not been diagnosed with anything, but she has, in some ways she's like a clone of me. Like, she will get obsessive about things, she'll struggle to communicate certain things.
Well, I mean, you know, when I was growing up, diagnosis and recognition was not there. And we lived in in some ways, a much harsher world. A lot of people weren't diagnosed, so they were stigmatised.
Yeah, totally.
Shows like the A Word are a gentle push of resistance against that.
Yeah, 100%. Since the show began, how has your character progressed?
Morris has had to become comfortable with the fact that he's vulnerable, which is hard for a man like that. And in his own way, he's done it, because that's what love does, and that's what autism does. When you love somebody who happens to have autism, you have to change. You have to change. You have to be led by them, not by your own ego. I had it with my father, who had dementia for 12 years. There was a point when I realised I have to stop trying to bring him into my world, because it's causing him anxiety, because he can't.
And how did you feel about that? Was that difficult?
It was, I mean, he's my father. It was devastating, because I knew I'd lost him, the father that I loved, and the father that I knew. But because he no longer knew himself, that had to be the priority. You know, people with dementia are still individuals, and they are still experiencing reality, and that has to be respected. Therefore, you move into their world. So I became a friend to my dad. I didn't insist that I was his son, because that distressed him. So I was his mate. I'd call him Ron instead of Dad.
I get you.
We don't want another baby, we have enough with me.
Oh, I see.
Well, I like a man who speaks his mind, eh, Vincent? Well done, Joe.
So, going with kind of the traits of the autistic spectrum, it's often quite a common one for pretty much a lot of people on the spectrum, that they'll often have a big passion, hobby, interest. Have you got any passions or interests?
I think I think you must be able to locate me. I'm very obsessive.
Yeah?
I get deeply passionate. My big thing is black American music of the 50s, 60s, 70s.
Oh yeah.
Some of the 80s, some present day, but I would say soul and funk.
Yeah.
And I can tell you who played on albums.
So who are the top artists in that?
For me,
Yeah.
that's a question.
That's all right.
That's like me asking you, who's your favourite doctor?
Well, you know the answer to that one though, don't you?
You know, or what's your favourite sci-fi show?
Yeah.
I find it's a much more direct, emotional connection.
Do you know it's only been in the past 2 years that for me music has really struck a chord. I got really into it. And I think you're right, it kind of triggers things in your brain. It makes you think certain things. I've got this one song, Cat Stevens.
Which one?
Father and Son. That one for me just, I can only listen to it now and again.
I have Soul Serenade by Aretha Franklin always hits me. Yeah.
Why is that?
I want to be free to fly away and sing my soul. I think it's about, I mean, it's the beauty of her voice, and the sentiment is about being free.
Yeah.
And of course, I had a civil rights message for Aretha, but I also had a message of, you know, probably being free of your own demons.
Well, what we were saying, it's been 2 years almost since we did our interview. In those past 2 years, you know, I grieved the losses of my grandparents, you know, I fell in love, heartbreak, got a new job, all these crazy things. It's been a roller
I've been
coaster.
divorced, moved out of my children's home. I've had a huge emotional uprooting in the last couple of years since we met. I was just setting off on that journey when we met, and it was terrifying, but I've learned a great deal from it, and it's benefited me. Doesn't feel like it's going to benefit you at the time, though. I'm sorry for your loss of your grandparents. So you've, not apart from your own grief, you've had to watch your mum grieve.
Yeah, which is particularly difficult.
That's almost harder than your own.
Yeah, it does. It's very,
Seeing somebody you love hurt like that.
yeah, it's very hard. I think you kind of, but once again, like you were saying, you have to put them first sometimes, don't you?
That's right.
And live in their world.
If we all live in with the idea that we're not the most important person on the planet, we'd do a lot better.
Yeah, totally. It's about looking out for other people ultimately, isn't it? That's the key thing. Sort of
Peace, man.
Yeah. And a pleasure. Thank you.